Well, Sean, you've had an 8-day gap. You've not had an 8-day gap between now and lockdown. So how have you used that 8 days, and has it been something that you've been able to recharge the players and yourselves a little bit?
Well, we've given the players a few days off after the last game. I think it's fair to say they've certainly earned that. And partly to refuel, training in the week and then another down day and then training obviously today and tomorrow building up to the game. So we've always tried to find the balance. We've given them days off during this lockdown period despite all the games because we thought it was really important on the mental side of the game. And we've been happy with the way that's been delivered and the way they've used that wisely to rest and recuperate and be ready to go.
You were pretty much safe going into lockdown. Has their hunger to do more than just be safe and maybe set records impressed you?
I don't think it started out like that. I think it started out with return in good shape, return ready to perform, particularly mentally. I remember doing an interview a few weeks, I think it was a couple of weeks, before we came out of lockdown. And I did mention, I said, I've had a Zoom call with every player all at once, and they all agreed, hands down, we're definitely ready to get on with it. So I've been pleased with that mentality. I think that's shown through the performances, despite all the challenges that we've had with varying situations. So delighted for them as much as anyone because it's paid them back. That mentality and that clear-mindedness to go and perform has paid us back. But
with one game to go, you as I say, you stand on the brink of setting a record for your Premier League points total, which shows that progress is being made and you're going in the right direction, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think, look, the league table is important, quite obviously. It's important to the chairman to keep getting the money in. It's important to me of a sort, but I think really I'm looking beyond that at the performance levels, because I've always thought if you get that right, you increase your chances of delivering, of course, and getting wins anyway. So I've been looking not just the table and the points tally, but also the way we've done it, the performance levels, all the details that count, and I've been really pleased with that.
Injury-wise, Charlie Taylor, any chance of being involved on Sunday?
No, Charlie won't. The other ones I've got a list, unfortunately, as you know. Woody's back, obviously, and so's Johan, Robbie as well, but Matt Loughton won't, Corky won't, Barnsley won't. So yeah, they're not gonna be. And Charlie, sorry, they won't make it for Sunday.
And Ben Mee as well. But with those kind of 4 players that you're missing, are you?
Ben. Yeah. Every time I remember one, I forget one off the list. There's that many.
But are you confident you can use the pre-season to get them fit for whenever we start again?
Well, we're hopeful. We don't know the exact date still. That might be coming out, over the next day or two. That would be helpful to pre-plan and replan, if you like, and look at where these players are injury-wise. The only one who's probably got a slightly longer one really now is Corky, and that's obviously with having sort of ankle surgery that went very well, very clean and simple, but it will take a bit of time for that to settle. A
final question for me, and everyone's being asked it today, VAR, just your general impressions of what's happened. I know you're a fan of that technology, but whether it's been applied right, since we've been back these last 8 games.
Yeah, I think pre-lockdown it seemed to be it was forming a more simplistic way of working, and then during or after lockdown it seems to have been there's been some crazy moments. I think I still think it's a good thing. I still think it's needed. The amount that's involved in these games and what it is, with these games. Then I think it is needed and I think it has to be there. It obviously continues to need work to streamline it and adjust. I think the referees continue to look at how their gut instinct to referee and the monitors, give them a view. Constant talk about using the monitors, etc., etc. I personally think that'll slow the game down further, so I'm not as keen on that one. I think people in the studio should do that. But I'm not the powers that be, they'll have to decide that. But generally, I remain a fan of it. I just think the margins are so tight. I know I've mentioned it before, but when you look at our penalty history, just us as a club and our history in the Premier League, incredible how off the stats we are. So therefore, VAR giving penalties against the ones we haven't had could be a big difference on your season. So I'm probably looking at it from our point of view at Burnley Football Club rather than the bigger picture, and that is their margins. They could be vital. You don't know.
Top stuff. Thank you. Good luck at the weekend.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks, James. Andy will come next to you. Andy Sixsmith, PLP.
Afternoon, Sean. You've enjoyed so many achievements at Burnley. How big an achievement in context do you think that this season has been, given everything that has gone on during the last 12 months?
Yeah, I think we'll reflect on it as being a really big achievement. I think at the moment we're just getting on with it like we tend to do. But I think over the summer period, however long that lasts, I think there will be a look at it and a view of it where people go, well, hang on a minute, they've delivered through all sorts of different challenges, and that's all credit to my staff and the players.
You talk about challenges. I think I was reading somewhere that you're now the third longest serving manager now in England. How much are you still enjoying your time and your challenges at Burnley, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think the enjoyment varies. It's, the longer in the tooth you get, particularly in the Premier League, you understand it more. You understand the goods, bads and indifference of it. It is a continued challenge. There's no two ways about it. But I think that the fuel that you need is certainly, in my case, is still there. I think that the demands I put on myself and the staff and the players and how we want to go about things, there's certainly a thirst for that. And I think that hasn't been adjusted, even with having a really strong finish to the season. If we hadn't had such a strong finish, I don't think that would adjust that. I think it's a natural thing for me to have that feeling of pushing, so if it's natural to me, I'll put it into the staff, or I try and add it into the staff and then into the group. The mentality for myself and the staff and the players has been very clear-minded, I think, through all the different challenges of this season.
We talk about the team's achievements, one of them probably being unbeaten at home since New Year's Day now. Hugely impressive from the team's perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, the stats of the Premier League, it's hard to come by them when you're us. It's... And the run of games we've had, the run of points, the run of wins, the clean sheets, these are big markers for us because, I would say it's a restart every sort of pre-season for us. We don't take it as a given, that's for sure. People often talk about us being a recognised Premier League club. It's not that easy. To be a recognised Premier League club when you're talking of the top teams, maybe. But outside of that, we've seen the varying challenges of the Premier League and how teams can fluctuate. So we certainly don't take it for granted. But there are some really key markers and some strong markers been laid down this season, without doubt.
And just one player in particular, Nick Pope, one clean sheet away from potentially winning the Golden Glove. Just reflect back on his season and how important he's been, how impressive he's been throughout the season for you.
Yeah, I mean, coming out of a tough season with injury and stuff like that, and getting back to where he wants to be, I think has been really pleasing for him and for us. He's good around the group. I think he respects the group. He respects the team that's playing in front of him. And when called upon, he makes big saves. But not only his big saves. I mentioned recently he's forming as an all-rounder now. I think his voice is getting stronger. I think his organisational skills are getting better. His awareness of decision-making, it continues to be more accurate, if you like. When to come across his, when not to, when to come off his line, when to read the game earlier. All these things are really important to a goalie, other than the obvious, which is stopping it going in the net, which is the most important thing. So I think he's becoming a good package. I think he's putting it together nicely, along with the other keepers, the challenge they give him, and of course Billy Mercer, who's done a great job.
And just one final one from me on Brighton. A lot being made about Graham Potter and obviously changing the philosophy at the club really at the start of the season. Of course, safe from relegation now. He's done a really, really good job down at the MX, hasn't he?
I think there's a lot of managers, for many different reasons. The challenges are seemingly different and judged differently, and the perception judged differently for each club. Who's doing what for what reason and what's the outcome. So I think I respect all of the managers. I think it's a really tough job. Obviously, I know it well. And so, I think all the managers give their best. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I don't know a manager who doesn't give everything they've got. And I'm sure he's doing that.
Thanks, Sean. Best of luck on Sunday.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Jed, we'll come to you. Jed Mills, BBC Radio Lancs.
Thank you, Pete. Hi, Sean. You all right? Just a week you've had now, over a week actually since the last game. Has it been nice to get on the training pitch, or has it been very much a rest and recoup?
No, more. Well, as much rest, not necessarily more, but as much. We've tried to find the balance. A few days off, few down days after a lot of football, and the mental demands. I thought. Strange game at Norwich, kind of flattish feel. Obviously, there's some reasons for that with them having gone down and stuff. So I think it was appropriate to get a few down days. They've come in and been nice and bright in the training days this week, so we're hopeful that that's worked. We won't know that for sure until the whistle blows on Sunday, of course.
Will there be potentially any risk taken with some players that might be maybe not 100% fit for this weekend?
No, I tend to not do that anyway, unless it's absolutely necessary. I prefer players to be almost overly fit before I play them. There's no one extra I don't think will make it. So therefore, we'll just be as cautious as we can to make sure that players who are out, we're not rushing them back, we're not forcing them back in. We want them to be as right as possible and available.
Will it be a case of maybe blooding some of the youngsters, giving them a chance for this weekend?
No, I doubt it. I think not because we don't want to. It's just that, the chairman wants every penny he gets hands on, like most chairmen do. So with all due respect, some of the young players here are good players, and we think they've developed, certainly from working with the first-team group after this lockdown period. But I still don't think many of them are quite ready to start. They might get a glimmer from the bench, of course, but I think starting's a different thing in the Premier League. And, the thing that sometimes is not documented is, as a manager, you've got to be fair to them as well, by the way. So, I've got to judge when I think they will handle it and they'll deliver, because if not, you're not being fair to them. And sometimes you can get hurt by that experience. If you put in too early and you can't quite handle what it is, that can actually, hold you back a little bit. So we've got to be careful with that as well, to find the right balance when they are ready, as against throwing them in for the sake of throwing them in.
Have some of them been knocking on your door, though, asking for that chance?
Yeah, of course. You can imagine they all knock on my door.
I mean,
I don't know where you got that one from. That's a peculiar one. No, that won't be happening.
No, I was going to say, but do they not? Do they not knock on the door and say, "Can I have a chance?" Or
if they did, they know that I'd just give them that look and they'd disappear. They'd earn their spurs, and when they're ready to knock on my door, they'd come and knock on my door. But until they're ready, they'll not be knocking on my door. I can assure you that.
So you're not the kind of manager that kind of likes that wants them knocking on your door.
It's not about like or loathe. It's about earning the right. It's about respect. When you're 18 and you just got in the first team squad and you come knocking on the door, trust me, that is not happening in this culture and environment.
You've been on a brilliant run since January. What do you think has been the change from what happened before then to what's happened now?
I don't think you could put your finger on it, other than I think the players have been extremely diligent in the lockdown period away from what we do here, and they've got their awards for that, because loads of different clubs will come back and you think you've got everything in place. Do you know what? You're never quite sure until the whistle blows. And it could be argued we didn't have everything in place at Man City. But equally, I argued straight after the game. I said, no, there was a lot of good signs from what we want to do. We were just playing against one of the best teams and they hurt you. I said that immediately after the game. I've obviously been pleased to be proven somewhat right, because they would have been foolish words if you don't. But no, I think the players they've respected the lockdown period for themselves and their families, first of all, but also because of their profession. They've come back. They've been very, very clear-minded in the challenge right in front of them. They've had a lot of challenges. We're seeing some very good players and people leave and seen through that, and some very, very good players and people have been injured. So to think that they've got on with it and just seen through all of that is, I'm absolutely delighted for them as much as anyone else.
You talked about being that recognised Premier League team and how hard it is every single year. Does it get harder every year as a manager, and why is that?
Well, I was actually talking about the fact it's hard to be recognised as an absolute sort of Premier League team, and I think the realities are, because I don't think you can. There's not many teams who can, by the way, but I think some you'd probably edge your bets and go, yeah, they've signed a few players, they've done this, they've done that. So there's some you'd probably edge your bets. I always think that we're in that kind of zone where we have to take it on with a clear-mindedness. It's improbable, not impossible, it's improbable that we spend a fortune. So therefore, we're often working with the players to continue their development whilst adjusting the squad where we can and keeping that hungry edge. And like I say, it sounds all easy. It's not that easy. But to find the balance and that respect level for them as people and them as players for this football club, I think we've done well over that. We've done well over time with that. But yeah, again, it comes down to the players. I'm a massive fan of players. I can only guide them. At the end of the day, they have to take ownership and they have to deliver it. And I think they do that fantastically well here.